Thank you, Jude. Did everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
So I'm Neil White, and there's so many people involved in this book, we're taking it in shifts. So I'm going to begin with Sandy and then introduce Christopher and Robert, and that'll be the main part of the show. Sandy Grisham was a non-traditional student who got hooked on learning at 38. And I'm not going to do it tonight, but I want to know what you did for those first 38 years. That's what's really interesting. Okay. She has been a secretary, a community college professor. She works with her husband, Paul Grisham, on community and leadership development. She's a writer, a photographer, a world traveler, and one of her most important roles is wife, mother, grandmother, and great-grandmother. So, Sandy Grisham. So Sandy co-wrote this book with Robert, and it's written in Robert's voice, in his first-person narrative. And I've written a couple of books like that for other people as well, and in partnership, co-authors. And so I'm going to ask Sandy a couple of questions, and then we'll switch out. So Sandy, first of all, tell me how you and Robert developed this partnership.
It all goes back to Vaughn. Vaughn was writing his book on Tupelo, and he wanted to learn about places like Haven Acres. And so he asked Robert to let him ride with him through the city. And so they built a friendship. And as Robert went through his years of trial, he came to Vaughn in 2021 and said, I think somebody needs to write my book. Will you write my book? Well, Vaughn was writing a biography of Mr. McLean, George McLean over in Tupelo. And he said, I can't, but he said, Sandy can. The newspaper said Sandy will, and he didn't tell me I had to. He said, can you, and so Robert turned to me and said, can you do it? And I said, sure, why not? What? So I didn't think twice about it. I just finished doing a large biography of myself and our family from my cousins. And I wasn't the least bit afraid. It didn't occur to me that I was in this for 4 years, that it was going to be up and down and in and out and round about, but it's been a great experience. So
Thanks,
that's
Sandy.
how I got there.
Okay, I know you've written academic papers, you've written books for your family, academic publications. This was your first time to write a consumer book, a creative nonfiction book. At what age did you embark on that?
I'm not going to answer. You don't have to answer.
To answer your question directly, I was 82. But I have to go back and correct you. What is it that he says, Lee Corso says? What does Lee Corso say? You all know.
Hold on a minute, wait a minute, no football game. Just a minute, something wrong with it.
Not so fast.
Not so fast.
Not
It's
so
not
fast. Because I got to thinking just the other day, after 4 years trying to do this, I wrote my first college paper back to school in the same manner. I wrote the Ole Johannesson Shrine, Norwegian immigrants of the 1870s, and that year it was published in the North Dakota History Journal.
Okay.
So I was doing it and didn't even know it till they got me into the academic writing. You've got to have those footnotes.
All right, great, thank you for correcting me on that. All right, so this is a question that you get asked all the time, and this is the question that probably everybody wants to hear the answer to, and so I'm going to ask it. Since you wrote the book in Robert's voice, captured his feelings, his emotions, how does an octogenarian white woman put herself in the shoes of a black man 3.5 decades younger who lived a totally different life? Is that the question you get asked all the time?
I think that's the question most people want to know. And I will tell you, my son tipped me off to a way to express it, and I'm going to use it. I am a racist. I believe in the human race. And every word I wrote was a human response. It wasn't a black response, and it wasn't a white response. It was a human response. As a female, I have been irrelevant and I've been invisible. The older I get, the more invisible I get. The older I get, the more irrelevant I get. But I am still a member of the human race, and I deserve respect.
That is a great answer. Two more questions, and then we're going to pass it along. Sandy, what was the most interesting thing you discovered in this 4-year process?
There were two things, Neil, because I went back to academia. I broke it into two things. It was the process, which you kept pushing me on. You taught me how to go and maximize what I'd started 50 years ago. And I loved it. I really loved it. The other side is the story. And the story is Robert's story. And the most amazing thing there, I never knew about the changing room. How many of y'all know about the changing room? Read the book.
Now, read the book. That's great. That's a good author right there. All right, last question here, Sandy. What's next for Sandy Grisham?
Sandy Grisham wrote in 2018 or so, wrote a biography for my family in which I included my life and how it fit into the trends and movements of the 20th century. And when I got to a particular chapter, the chapter on old age, I simply said, I'll write this when I get there.
Okay, thank you. Let's hear it for Sandy Grisham. Okay, the two gentlemen who are going to come up here now, Christopher Powell and Robert Hall. I'm going to stay seated here because of the camera, and then I'll hand it over to you. Christopher Powell, standing right here, was in the Episcopal Church for 39 years as in ministry in the parish, and he was rector of churches in New England, in Jackson, Mississippi, in Illinois. In 2002, he was hired here to Oxford.
2022.
What did I say? 2022. Sorry, 2022. No good deed goes unpunished. He was then asked to be interim rector at St. Peter's Episcopal Church in Oxford, which he's doing right now. He's taken the parish through some great times of turmoil and growth. He met Robert 2 years ago, and they have developed a wonderful friendship. And so I can't wait to hear what he has to ask Robert. And Robert Hall, the star of the show. Let's hear it for Robert. I'm not going to take away any of the drama of what this conversation is going to be about, but Robert Hall was he was a police officer for 20 years, and in Tupelo, he rose to the level of deputy chief of police. He's also worked at Toyota with the Community Foundation, with Women of America, Mass Mutual. His wife is Melissa here?
Yes.
His wife Melissa is here, and I know some of his children are. Rachel and Robert Taylor, Brandon and Wilson. Okay, let's please give a hand to Christopher and Robert. It's all yours.
So, Robert, before I begin to ask you questions, we start. Is this okay? Can you all hear? Yeah. Before we start with the interview, I have an observation. The last time there were this many people in a room because your name is Robert Hall, they were trying to break you back. And tonight, we're here to say that badge is unbroken. And so you stole my next line, which is, this may be the first time in the history of Square Books, but I think because of that and because of your journey, we need to give him a robust round of applause. I've read the book twice, and it was even better the second time. But and I trust that people here either read it or will read it. And so in doing this, I think there's some other stories that aren't in the book that would really shed some light about your journey and the telling of the story. I'd like you to start by reminding us about your father and mother working the same house, a white house, where your mother was the inside help and your father worked outside. Tell us about the dynamics of what that meant for your father.
Wow, well, thank you, Christopher, and thank you, Scrapbooks, and thank you, Neil, and Sandy, and Dr. Ron, and everybody that's come out to support us tonight. It's an honor to be here. But to start with your question, Christopher, when I was a teenager, my dad, B.T. Hall, was a sharecropper, and he worked on the white folks' land, and my mom worked inside of the house. And so from time to time, I would go with him to help clean the yard, and my mom would be inside. And so, but strangely to me is when lunchtime came, he couldn't go into the back door. We could only go to the back porch. And granted, this is the late 70s, as well. And so, but on his back, he did that, and he was humble. And my mom did that to take care of 6 kids. Now, I'm the youngest of 3 brothers. I'm the youngest 2 brothers and 3 sisters. And we stayed in a 4-room clapboard house and didn't have an inside toilet to it. So we got an inside toilet when I came a senior at South Tupelo High School. And so when we would go to the back door, I always wondered why couldn't we go inside and have lunch as well. But as the years evolved, and as it came down to writing this book, Sandy and Doc, it kind of came to mind when I was sitting at your table so many times and been invited to your house so many times. And I noticed it wasn't any difference. You wouldn't treat me any different. You wouldn't look at me in a strange way. And I always kind of wondered that. But Christopher, to answer your question here, my dad could not go into the back door, but one day we were writing, and Sandy would tell you this, and we were eating hamburgers. And I wanted ketchup. Man, I wanted ketchup so bad on those fries. And so I said, now, there's a refrigerator. Here's my burger. I need some ketchup. And I asked her about that. She said, well, it's in the refrigerator. And so I looked at her, looked at my fries, and looked at the refrigerator. And then she looked back and said, you think I'm going to get up and go to the So it really dawned on me, how relationships have evolved. And so my dad could not go into the back door, but I was able to go in the house and into the refrigerator. So thank you.
I was curious about how, as Neil was implying, about how somebody gets into somebody else's head to write the story from their perspective. And I think in the acknowledgments at the end, Sandy, you said that you had to crawl into his head. But tell me so you start the project 4 years ago, and you sit down, and you begin talking, and she begins taking notes, and then there's a period of time, and she sends you what she's written. Tell us about what that very first experience was like, and what it was like to have somebody else put your words on paper.
Well, it was interesting because this is nothing I've done before, but I believe in purpose, and I believe God has a purpose for all of us, no matter who we are, black, white, old, young, Hispanic, you name it, male, female. He has a purpose for it. But when she wrote those first couple of paragraphs, I guess she was kind of fiddling around, whatever writers do, and she would email them to me. And being a retired school teacher, she expected me to read every word. And then she would question me about that, so I know I had to read it. But when those first few paragraphs came to me, and my family will tell you, and my wife will tell you, and I would read these, and I would begin to get these chills over my body. And, I think there was a couple of reasons for that. You had mentioned the last time I was in a room this size, and the diversity that's in this room, they were actually trying to break me. But here are people that I think God destined years ago that are trying to keep me together. So that's what I felt.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you want the person who reads your book to come away with?
There are several things that's in this book that I want the people to read to come away with. Number one is like we've talked before. We as believers, some may not be believers, but we all believe in something. My belief is in the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. But a lot of times we have faith when things are going well with us. We have faith and things are going well, our family's doing well, good job, money, things are going well. But what do you do when that faith is shaken? When your life is turned, in a matter of moments, and you can't see a way out? How do we maintain our faith? And then once that faith is shaken, you begin to hold on to hope. And so now we hope, and then that hope begins to slip away. But then a community of people come together, like I'm saying in this room, and they come together with love. So you get me? Faith, hope, and love.
Yes.
Love keeps everything together. And I've made the statement before. There's a mentor of mine, his name is Opa Babatunde. He made the statement one time. He said, relatives are someone that we don't have control over. It's just the way it is in the bloodline. But family is someone that's going to be there for you no matter what. So family don't always have to look just like me, look just like you. Young, old, black, white, you name it. Family are those people that's going to be there and support you and guide you and tell you what's right no matter what. So what I want the readers to get out of this book is a couple of things. Is that keep the faith and that everyone has a purpose. I believe it was Mark Twain who said that there's two important days in life. The day that we're born and the day we figure out why. So we all have a purpose. And the thing about it is sometimes we have to go through hard times in order to figure out what that purpose is. And so, but when we figure out what that purpose is, we can go a little further. We can push a little harder. And so that's what I want. I want people to connect with faith, hope, love, and understand that we all are here for a purpose.
So the most beautiful part of the book for me was not the elected officials, DAs particularly, who were lying about the incident, but it was when you sank into depression and discovered you had PTSD and you had suicidal thoughts. It occurred to me that would be a very natural reaction. But in a more granular way, how did you go from walking out behind your home with a loaded gun to coming out of that spot?
Wow. Look to the right, about 3 or 4 rows down. You'll see my family.
So it really was love.
It was love. It was love. The reason that I'm talking today is because of my family. I didn't want them to have to tell how their dad left this world. And one of the things I always wanted my family to do, especially my kids, I never wanted them to be afraid of me, but I wanted them to respect me. Because if they respect me, they're going to wonder what would Dad do in this situation. And that respect will always go. And so that's the reason I'm sitting here today. I wanted them to be proud of how Dad handled this situation. Not to return evil for evil. I had the thoughts. And, part of this is in the book, part of it is not. I was weapon trained. I ran SWAT teams. I ran negotiations, jumped out of planes, jumped out of helicopters, master firearms instructor. I had the knowledge. And so when it comes to depression and how the devil messes with your mind, he will put thoughts in your mind that you wouldn't normally want to do. But we have to understand that there's a greater power than love that wants to keep us on this earth. Didn't want to return evil for evil, but not that I didn't think about it. And that's the natural thing. It's okay because we're going to think about things. But always remember, no matter what situation anybody's in here, that purpose and the power of love can pull us through. And I know you didn't ask this. One of the reasons that I wanted the book to be Badge Unbroken is because I believe that once we are connected to the blood of Jesus, is that we cannot be broken. We can be stretched as human beings. We can be pulled. We can be drugged over the coals. We can be humiliated. Our integrity can be attacked. Our family can be attacked. All these things. But we never have to be broken. So I look at this room today, and I can look on the faces. There's some people that have faced some issues in here. It's been some hard times. There's some serious situation where we just wanted to give up. I'm telling you today from personal experience that you have a purpose and you don't have to give up, because life is going to be hard. And we're just positioning ourselves to help others through a situation. So God is just building our resume. And I can see some resumes on some faces right here. Yeah, I've been through some stuff, but now I feel that I can continue to push forward. So I don't like the word when people say I'm broken, because He's already did that for us. He did that for us. So that's my whole thought behind it.
All right. You can take me out to the woodshed for this afterwards, and we know how that's going to go. But there's one question that I didn't ask you when we were talking about this book. You have at least 4 real-life villains in the book, 2 district attorneys and 2 fellow police officers. And after Neil White, I'm not going to tell you more. You got to read the book. But where are you? And a 5th, the police chief who was not honest with you, and who, again, not in the book, requested his official burial to be with a Confederate flag in a Tupelo Police official funeral, and was refused that. Thanks be to God. Where are you with those real life villains who made the writing of this book and the telling of this story so necessary? Where are you with them personally?
Wow. Where's the woodshed? For years, I was in a bad spot with those. And you mentioned the DA. I can remember being like the #1 investigator on several murder cases. On one in which, one of the DAs was threatened. So as we was working on that case and we were going through court, he was being threatened. So my best friend and partner at the time, Cliff Hardy, we would be in court all day. Then we would sit outside his house at night while our families were at home alone. I had to watch this same DA tell a court how bad I was, how no good, I am. And taking care of his family, 3 or 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the morning, going home to shower right quick and right back to the court. So to set what you just said, I had to work real hard. I had to really rely on faith, and I had to learn how to forgive. And, I had to realize that what they meant for bad, God meant for good. And so I was able to actually forgive. And that's where I am today. So I have no qualms. Now, I'm not going to lunch or dinner, with anybody, but if one of them was to walk in this room today, I would shake his hand and say thank you, because I just heard the other day, and I shared this, I was at a speaking at Mississippi, and there was a retired white cop went to one of the audience members and said, Robert Hall got what he deserved. And he actually thought he was going to upset me when he said that. And I said, yeah, you're right. I've got a better life. I understand my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ better. I can feed my family better now. I can walk as a man and keep my integrity. You're right. I got what I deserve. So thank you.
And the last question, and this isn't evident in the book explicitly, it is implicitly. When you were at your lowest and you were still being required to work but not get paid, I still can't understand how that works. It was coming from the background you came from, where because of the color of your father's skin, he was not allowed inside a house. And you had that imprinted on you as somebody living in the Deep South at the time you were growing up. The people who came to your financial and emotional rescue didn't have the same skin color that you had. They were white.
That's right.
So tell me what that meant to you, that, because you said in the book that you were surprised that the elders in your church were not financially reaching out to help you and Melissa and your children. But the white community did it. Talk about that before we finish up.
Well, that's a very good and good question, Christopher, and it's very touching. Because there were people that I didn't know, white gentlemen that I've never met, that felt the need to come to our rescue. Because what I understand what they said is that we can't stop what's going on, against him. We can't put ourselves out in front, but we can make sure that he doesn't leave the city and his family doesn't starve. And that's when I really learned, and I made the statement earlier about family, and love. And to see people that don't look like you to come to your rescue, you don't even know them. That's nothing but the power of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. Because he said that we would never go hungry if we're connected to him. The cattle of 1,000 hills is dying. He owns everything. And he worked through people in order to make sure my family didn't starve, to make sure that we stayed in our house, to make sure we stayed on our property. And that's how I know that no matter how they label or how other states label Mississippi or Tupelo or Lee County, is that we have people there all different races, all different colors that are willing to pull together and do what's right. And there were even people that pulled together and supported me that their livelihood was threatened. You know, their businesses were threatened, but they didn't fold. And so when I say that this story, there's some racial tone to it, it's obvious that it's there. But I think the biggest part of this story is how different people that wants to do what's right, that pull together and take that chance to do what's right no matter what, because they know in the end, and I think it was Cliff Hardy in the book, and I don't want to give away, but he said in the end what matters is when he stands before his Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. That's what matters. So with purpose, the hard things that we go through today, they're not going to take us out until we reach our purpose. And so I am forever grateful to those people. And I always have to give homage to Dr. Vaughn. I believe that when you came to Tupelo, Mississippi on that day in the early 90s, hopped in a car with a young, arrogant black cop, and I was arrogant, and said, okay, let's ride. And so I looked at Dr. Vaughn, and I'm saying, and I don't know how he's in his 80s now, he had to be like really old then too. And I said, okay. And we rode. And I said, well, he'll be here in 30 minutes or an hour. As soon as we hit one of the bad areas, you know, he'll get scared and he's go. No. When we clocked out 10-7 early that morning, he was clocking out too. And so I believe that it's people like that that God put in your life. And he's already seen today. And through Dr. Vaughn, Sandy was put in my life. And I can go on and on and on. The Tuesday morning coffee group was put in my life. That's what it's all about. It's pulling together, doing the right thing because of love. Because of who we are. And so I just want to tell you guys today, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Two final observations. C.S. Lewis wrote, and this is my image of you out behind your home with a loaded weapon, thinking about what you're going to do. And you haven't talked about this, you haven't used this word, but I think this passage applies. The gates of hell and the devil are never in more trouble than when a man, no longer believing anything, still obeys. And you obeyed that love, and you obeyed your Lord, and here you are today. And the last thing I want to make clear about this partnership, and it's also a C.S. Lewis quote. It's a different context, but it actually works here. Who is the more important partner in the writing and publishing of this book? That's like asking which blade of the scissors cuts the paper. So, blessings to both of you. Thank you for the 4 years. Thank you for tonight. And as they say, we hope you sell 1 million copies.
One final note. Robert was driving through Texas one day
And noticed a vintner that caught his attention. And now you can drink Robert Hall wine.
There's a quick story behind it. Our friend Jamie Barnett, we had an outing several months ago, And it was while we were still trying to pray for this book to be published. And I gave him that bottle of wine, and he said, I'm going to hold on to it, and when that book is published, I'm going to give it back to you. So he didn't drink it.